Why are we here? Because we're here to roll the bones. Well, why am I here? Why not? Everyone else is doing a top 10 album review of 2021, so I'm going to join the party. Let's be real, we're living kind of through a little bit of Groundhog's Day now. At least I could say that on behalf of myself. It's been wake up, my daytime adult representative, doing what daytime adult people do. Then in the evenings, it's pumping the iron so I could maybe come. No, just pumping the iron. Wash, rinse, repeat. Do it over and over and over. Just to let you know, the slideshow you're going to be treated to in this video are some of the albums we're going to be speaking about, I'll be speaking about, and also a wonderful trip I did in the fall of this year to the Pacific Northwest. This is not brought to you by the City of Seattle Tourism. It's just cool pictures, I think, that are fun, and hopefully you get a kick out of it. So, 2021, where do we begin? Uh, hey, it happened. There was some good, there was some bad, and there was some real ugly. Uh, I kind of equated to Final Fantasy. I did got my magic points, got my skill points up, worked very hard, and there were a couple of battles with bosses where like four of the six people in my entourage got laid out, and I had to retreat, but come back to normal and just farm and redo my abilities. I'd say this year definitely one of those years where I roosted in the hen house and wild in the pigsty. But hey, we got through it. We can only learn. You live, you learn, as Alanis Morissette would say. So let's do a little bit of rehash. Earlier in the year, I did these podcast style episodes on Hiatus Coyote and Quicksand. Neither are going to be featured in this list of top tens or honorable mentions or head scratchers or anything like that. But just go back and listen to those two if you're curious about reviews and new albums by Hiatus Coyote and Quicksand. Before we start the proper list, let's go through with the inconclusive, the TBDs. There's only so much time in a week, in a month, and in a year. And unfortunately, there were new releases by Iron Maiden, Dream Theater, and one I just found out about today by Ben Lamar Gay called Open Arms to Open Us, which are all pretty cool or seem cool. I haven't had a chance to properly listen to them yet, but it's something that's on the agenda for the coming days or weeks. Actually, Iron Maiden's tomorrow, believe it or not. So let's get to the honorable mentions. These didn't quite make the top 10 list, but they were pretty good overall. I have to say Mammoth WVH, the Wolfgang Van Halen solo debut, very good. It sounds a lot more like alternative 90s, like hard rock 90s, as opposed to a classic Van Halen, but that's cool. Motorpsycho, a band from Norway, put out a B-sides compilation of their 2020 album called Kingdom of Oblivion. That's really cool. They've been around for almost 30 years. Cool band, Motorpsycho, check them out. And then also Valerie June, the album, I did speak a little bit about that beginning of the year. It's a good album overall. It just didn't stick to me for whatever reason. I found myself daydreaming, other than like the Call Me a Fool single and a couple of other tracks. It was mostly like background or working on other projects type music. It's not bad and it's pretty cool, but just didn't make the list. All right. So not like you have a lot to do on New Year's Eve, but you can treat this as like a stream or download or listen to a podcast or anything like that. But here we go. Let's get right to it and keep it moving. Number 10 is Fortitude by Gojira, the French prog alt heavy metal band, whatever you want to call them. Environmentalist heavy prog metal, something like that. I think it was a good album. It was more groove metal and hard rock. It wasn't as proggy. Overall, it's a good job and it's a solid album. It's missing a little bit of that dynamic element of their previous releases, but it's a good album. So take it for what that is. Number 9 is As the Love Continues by Mogwai, the Scottish, mostly instrumental alternative band. What's cool, this album was not straight through an A album. Not all tracks were great, but the tracks that did stand out, in my opinion, are among some of the best they've ever done. When they sampled with hip hop and more modern sounding studio technology, I think a lot of it is cool and always welcome the fuzz bass. Number 8 is Daddy's Home by St. Vincent. I think this is a terrific album. It's very 70s. It has that 70s New York feel to it, a little bit of a like a jazz club, R&B, folk, like all those session musicians who are around New York. Think like Tony Levin's life in 1971 or 72, going from like jazz clubs to Paul Simon to whatever he was doing. Just imagine that. But it definitely has that vibe to it. There's some really funky stuff on there, some really dreamy and psychedelic, hypnotic stuff. A good theme about her father getting released from prison. And to me, I think it's a much better album than Mass Seduction, which everyone seemed to love, which came out a couple of years ago. This is more organic. It has more of that vintage, warm feel to it. And overall, a great job. Number 7 is Blood Moon 1 by Converge with Chelsea Wolfe and Stephen Brodsky. Chelsea Wolfe is billed as it being a Converge slash Chelsea Wolfe album, but Stephen Brodsky also sang and wrote enough on it. He played in Converge. He's mostly known from Cave In and more recently Quicksand and many other projects around the northeastern United States. Overall, this album, Converge took a risk. It mostly worked. There's some elements of which are vintage Converge, some Chelsea Wolfe stuff, and some Cave In Stephen Brodsky stuff on here. At times, the styles, or more often than not, the styles work really, really well, perfectly together. It doesn't always hit. There's some tracks on the back end of the album are a little bit generic or not the most dynamic arrangements, but it hits more often than not, especially the middle part. The middle part of the album is the real meat. Number 6 is a very, very late entry, Unmaker by a band called LLNN. Just think of like prog sludge stoner rock with a science fiction elements, doom, just otherworldly, whether it's a comet coming to hit Earth or some kind of the end of civilization or just your planet's blowing up, you're going into the stars. It's very cool and it just hits. It's heavy and the grooves just keep hitting and nail you. And it's also very hypnotic. So, and there's also some ambience on it as well. So cool stuff there. Now, moving on to number 5 is a post-hardcore band. The album is called Piecework by Kowloon Walled City band. I believe they're from Oakland, California. What's cool about this album is they've matured as songwriters. I believe this is their 3rd or 4th full-length effort, and the arrangements are great. There's a lot of dynamics. It doesn't always have to be distorted or loud or in your face. A lot of times the heavier moments are the quieter moments, or when a bass is actually rumbling more so than the guitar. The guitar is just very clean and minimalist. Number 4 is Una Rosa by Xenia Rubinos. I did speak a little bit about that in the very beginning of the year, almost a year ago at this point. I was a little concerned. I was not in love with the singles when I heard them, but upon listening to the entire album as a full unit or full experience, are really, really well done job. What's interesting about this album is there are a lot of Caribbean and Latin influences, and that's really cool. And she almost deconstructs her entire style, where before she's a great bass player, and her and Marco Pacelli are an amazing rhythm section, and there's a lot of emphasis on funk and bass and grooves. And not so much here. There's not really that much bass other than maybe 1 or 2 tracks. There's a lot of sampling, keyboards, even auto-tune vocals. But what's cool about it, it manages to be creative, unique, and strange, but in a very different way. But at the same time, true to the essence of what makes her a tremendous and all-around creative artist and musician. Number 3 is a little bit of a sad story. It is Jork by an Oakland noise rock band called Nopes. So I found out about this album in April. By about June, they announced that they were breaking up after about 8 years together for various reasons. This is like, think the Stone Temple Pilots meets late 80s, early 90s sub pop. They're really like noisy, Seattle, overdriven, sludgy sound, and like the Melvins as well. It's a lot of energy. This is just like a fun listen. A lot of good workout music on here, and a lot. If you're really into hard rock and noisy stuff, this is a great album to listen to and add to your collection. It's a shame they broke up. They were trying to do some festivals to call it a proper end, but due to the global situation, I don't believe they were able to. And hey, who knows? Maybe they'll be listening to this and could get back together and have second thoughts. Hey, if there's one thing to come out of this, it's getting Nopes back together. I'm all for it. Number two is you'll probably see some of their concert photos in this lovely slide montage, along with the tourism of Seattle and various other album covers here. Is Strength by Unto Others. They've really emerged and improved as songwriters and just combining elements of goth, thrash, post punk, and even Bad Religion rhythm slash beats to their bass and guitar. They've really like mastered that entire formula of headbanging music, but also sounding moody and seasonal. And they were a lot of fun live when I saw them in November of this past year. What's also cool as well is not only did they put out the Strength album, but they also put out a Halloween EP of 2 tracks, which kind of go as a companion piece to this album, and they're equally as good and cool. And the number one album of the year is, in my opinion at least, is Glow On by Turnstile. So I've known about this band for a couple of years. I've been a fan. Time and Space was a great album and was looking forward to this release. And what's interesting about it is, while it is a punk rock slash hardcore record, if you want to put that in quotations, it's just one of the most creative rock albums I've heard in years because it takes elements, it takes synthesizers, like they have this like almost like a Reading Rainbow intro to the album, and they take other kind of beats and styles, whether it's drum machines or samples, put a little bit of like salsa in there, funk, and also late 80s alternative music. So it makes it a very diverse album, not just hardcore. And they've taken the songwriting to a next level. And they're such a young band. I'm kind of curious where they're going to go from here. Hey, the sky's the limit, and strap that rocket ship on Turnstile and keep it going. So that's basically my list of top 10 albums. I hope you've enjoyed it. What's next in 2022? Well, we hope to have some proper episodes. Personally, I'm not going to really give out too much information about anything. That's kind of my MO these days. If you find this great, I'm not going to be promoting it on social media in every corner of the universe. And I think this is just something fun to change up and kill the monotony of the daily activities. And also to look, if I can get one person to listen to one of these albums on this list, or just at least talk about it, I think it's mission accomplished. So thank you again for being a loyal listener, whether you hear this on New Year's Eve as part of your most likely stay at home or low key New Year's efforts, or if you hear this 5 years from now and we've colonized Mars. Either way, thank you so much. Like, subscribe, share to everybody in the pool. I am Method Mike A. Mummies on Main Street. Tim is my co host. He's around. And we'll be back soon.